Boys, let's talk about Iron Hands. Iron Hands, my babies, the boys, the G's, the units. I love them. Iron Hands are an interesting faction just because they were broken, then they really weren't broken, and now they're on the rise. The trajectory is perfect. Now, they rely on a few rules such as ignoring Hevel Penalty and rerolling ones as their doctrine. They usually take a successor chapter. They don't really play as Iron Hands, they play as an Iron Hands successor. They rely on Bodyguard quite heavily because it is broken. They also really struggled into some of the really meta lists such as Admech, typical Drakari builds, Squig, Buggy, Spam, but they were nerfed. Let's go! They were nerfed. No one plays Admech anymore, which is great for the meta, but great for Iron Hands. Iron Hands were like, the meta's back on the menu, boys. They were like lightning weight. They were like a very, very strong list that can deal with pretty much every army on the battlefield. Only Drakari remain as a real competitor because there's no army they can't really deal with because they rely on a horrific alpha, and it's glorious. It's a glorious alpha. What they do is they hit you so hard in turn one that you can't really recover. There's a lot of tricks involved with that, but the real trick is to see you can't shoot back, kill you, or stop you scoring because you don't have enough units and you don't want to show units because you don't want to lose them. So they then just hold the battlefield, they hold the grid. And then if you do decide to go in combat with them because their firepower is too good, they sit there with Born Heroes and Whirlwind of Rage, and it's beautiful. These two chapters, the successor chapters, are very, very good in combat. They make you hit on twos. They make you get sixes to hit is 2 hits rather than 1. It's basically free death to the False Emperor as a chapter tactic. Really, really strong, and it's got a lot of play. And the reason they take this successor chapter is because Iron Hands, with their stratagems and their doctrine, are ridiculously shooting, so they make them better in combat. And that's how I choose to run mine. So I use Blood Ravens as Iron Hands because I have more guns, so I take Master Artisan instead, which is still good in combat. However, it's better for shooting. And I still run Whirlwind of Rage because it's a very, very good faction trait. Iron Hands are super strong. And this weekend, we just had Into the Hellstorm 7 Gladius. I can't believe it's been 7 weekend events now. But we called it Gladius because we gave away a Gladius, right? It kind of makes sense. It's all in the name. But who won it? Captain of Team England, Josh Roberts, with Iron Hands. We're going to talk about his list. We're going to talk about what it works, what it does well, what it doesn't do well, and we're going to talk about why Iron Hands meta is back, because there's not much that can stop these sorts of lists. Here we go. This is Josh Roberts, Gladius GT. He only starts with 4 command points because he buys so many Forge World things, abilities, warlord traits, etc. It's very CP hungry, but Iron Hands don't really have that many stratagems they need to play with. They need to play with Feel No Pain, Reject the Flesh, Embrace the Machine, and they also need to play with Mercy is Weakness, which is essentially 6s to wound is 2 wounds in shooting if they shoot the same target with all their guns, which is super good. And then there's another one, it essentially lets you put a unit back into the Devastated Doctrine, which means they still reroll ones to hit, they ignore the Hevel Penalty, and they gain AP for 1 CP on any unit. So let's talk about his list. So he's running the Born Heroes and Whirlwind of Rage, but more importantly, he's running Minotaurs. And the reason he's running Minotaurs is because it's a Forge World chapter, which means it essentially doesn't have like a set faction or a set chapter. And the reason he runs Minotaurs is because there is a HQ Dreadnought. Okay, we'll talk about him in a few minutes. But he's got a Primaris Chaplain on bike. Now, the Primaris Chaplain is not a common one in Iron Hands builds. However, it's very good because he gives him Mantra of Strength and Canticle of Hate, which essentially +2 to charge and pile in 6. He's also got Mantra of Strength, which essentially makes him a Slapling. So that's +1 attack and strength and +1 damage. So he gives him an aura of +2 charge and consolidating piling 6 inches rather than 3. And also gives you an extra attack, extra strength, and extra damage, which makes him super good. Now he's got the Benediction of Fury, which is a Crozius, which is +2 strength, -2 AP, and 3 damage. Any 6s to wound is a mortal wound in addition. So he's now damage 4, piling in 6. He's +3 strength, so he's going to be strength 7. -2 or -3 in the assault doctrine. He's hitting on 2s, and then also 6s to hit are 2 hits. Big slappy boy. He's also got the target protocols warlord trait, which is very common. Choose a unit in the shooting phase. It rerolls a hit roll, a wound roll, and a damage roll whenever it fights or shoots. Any unit at all. He's got 5 incursors, tax troop in this patrol. Incursors are super good because they forward deploy, help you screen out really well, and also stop people screening you out early game, because then the incursors are essentially helping block units or just let you hold the battlefield. So if they've got lots of forward deploy, you've got incursors to counter forward deploy, so you can always rely on your drop pod landing where it wants, which is really good. He's got 2 units of company veterans. Company veterans are essentially a bodyguard space marines. They take a storm shield, so they've got a 2-up save. They sit them in cover, so they've got a 1-up save as well. They have a 3-inch aura of can't shoot characters with any ranged weapons whatsoever, which is super good. Reason being is because when you can't shoot characters, that's fine, but when you can't shoot dreadnought characters with Volkite, even better. He's got 2 units of those, so he's got multiple character dreadnoughts, which gives him a lot of play. And then he's got 2 units of devastators, both equipped the same. He's got an Armorium Cherub, so one model's going to be shooting twice a turn, 1 grav cannon, 3 multi-melters. Now this is the same way I run mine, which I feel like I have the credentials, I guess, because I came second with no retreat with a very similar loadout, and I went 4-1 at the LGT, so I know what I'm talking about. The reason you take grav cannon and 3 multi-melters is because multi-melters are very good at killing tanks. Grav cannons are pretty good at killing infantry. However, if you take 4 multi-melters, that unit is only good at killing tanks. Whereas if you take a grav cannon and use the Armorium Cherub, you now have 6 melter shots and 8 anti-infantry shots from each unit, which is super nice. You can make the grav cannon hit on 2, so you got 2s to hit, 8 shots, re-rolling 1s because you're 9 hands in turn 1, 8 shots re-roll in, which are anti-infantry, which are usually 2 damage or -4 AP and 2 damage at strength 5. And then you got the multi-melters. You can shoot a vehicle, like a rhino, for example, with the multi-melter and kill it, and then use your Armorium Cherub to shoot the grav cannon again and kill the unit inside. So it's like super like efficient shooting, and you don't need to max out grav cannons, because when they used to reroll wounds, they were really good. Now they don't. Like just 1 or 2 is really good. 2 grav cannons, 2 multi-melters, or 1 grav cannon, 3 multi-melters is like really common. But you got 2 each of them. Super efficient, 165 points, really cheap. He's then got a drop pod to carry though, just a single drop pod, but they both come down together, they both hit hard. And then he's got Landspeeder Storm. So Landspeeder Storm is actually the scout transport, has 7 wounds for no reason whatsoever. Really rubbish, but it's essentially just very good at getting Oath of Moment, being in the middle of the board, engage, be in a corner. It's like super fast. It's really good at screening because it is so speedy. And think like how Dark Eldar use Venoms to get engaged, to grab objectives, to move around the board with board control. This is the same. Then he's got a Vanguard detachment. So this is 7 CP. So he's got in his HQ, it's Minotaurs, it's Hecaton Iacos. So Hecaton is a character dreadnought. So he's like a mini Redemptor, but 160 points. So cheaper than a Redemptor. So Hecaton is T7, 9 wounds, moves 8, BS and weapon skill 2, 3-up save. He's got 4+ invulnerable save because he's a character. He's got duty eternal, so he's -1 damage. Every time he makes a charge move, roll a 1d6, add 1 to the roll if it's a vehicle. On a 3 to 5, suffer mortal wounds. On a 6+, you suffer d3 mortal wounds. So he's got a little impact here as well. He's got Storm Bolter. He's got a heavy plasma cannon, which is D3 shots, strength 7, -3 and 2 damage, or strength 8, -3 and 3 damage if you overcharge, but obviously take damage if you do that. He's also got a Dreadnought close combat weapon, which is strength 14, -3 and 3 damage with 5 attacks, 6 on the charge. So he's got this little Dreadnought character with the plasma cannon doing 3 damage. They're going to be using the bodyguard rule with the company of veterans, 2 units of, to protect them. So essentially you have this Dreadnought within 3 inches of the bodyguard, and you can't target the Dreadnought with any ranged weapons. Now, I've done a video on this already. If you're watching back, there's a thingy up here that you can go watch that if you like. It's super busted. I'm surprised it's still in the game, especially for vehicles. Now, I personally think the bodyguard should be infantry models within 3, not just characters within 3. It should be infantry characters and models only, because you get weird Celestine and stuff. He's got 2 more company veterans there. They're only 48 points. It's super good for doing actions as well, raising banners, doing rod, etc. But having 3 units gives him kind of like lots of spare dead weight, essentially, where he can kind of run 1 unit forward and the dreadnoughts can like ferry between them so they can get a little bit closer and do a little bit more shenanigans. So then he's got a Relic Contemptor Dreadnought with a Twin Volkite Culverin, a Cyclone Missile Launcher, and a Dreadnought Chain Fist. So he's got a Plasma Blaster in there as well, so a little extra shooting attack there because that comes in the fist. But the fist is strength 14, -4, 2d3 damage. So 2d3 damage, minimum 2, maximum 6. However, if you attack a vehicle, it is damage 6 flat. Damage 6, that is insane, right? Against a vehicle when you've got Dread Knights, Knights, Ork Buggies still trying to do the rounds. Baby, you're just like ripping up vehicles. Like, Dread Knights will not want to come and tag your Dreadnought if it's got a Chain Fist. Speaking of Chain Fist, he's got another Relic Contemptor. Here we go. It's the loadout. Twin Volkite Culverin, Cyclone Missile Launcher, Chain Fist with Plasma Blaster again. Also, makes him a character with March of the Ancients, which is 1 CP. It's 1 CP to take him, and then another CP for Hero of the Chapter for Merciless Logic. A 6 to hit generates an extra attack in shooting. So the Twin Volkite with 8 shots, and then any 6s to hit generates an extra hit, which is super cool. Now, this list doesn't have as much Volkite as other lists. It has it spread out. It has 2 Dreadnoughts, 2 separate. But it has those Chain Fists, which again, when you fight going into Dread Knights with Grey Knights, when you're going into Squig Buggies because of Orks, when you're going to any other vehicle in the game, like Imperial Knights, you know, because the Imperial Knights and Chaos Knights are kind of doing the rounds again because of the balance update, which makes them obsec, makes them count as 10. People are really interested in Imperial Knights again. Vanguard Veterans, he's got 3 units. So he's got a unit of 5 with Thunderhammer and Storm Shield, and then 4 Lightning Claws. Another unit of 5, exactly the same. And then a unit of 10. Thunderhammer on the Sergeant. But he's basically got 2 Thunderhammers, 8 Lightning Claws, so they can, if he needs to, combat squad into 2 equal units, barring the Sergeant having an extra attack. He's still going to have a Thunderhammer in both units if he combat squads, which is super crucial. This list is really good in shooting. It's got 2 units of Devastators. It's got 2 Relic Contemptors, right? And then, you know, that's like a hell of a lot of really powerful shooting. It's then got lots of little guns. It's got Hecaton with his plasma cannon. And then it just like comes in and slaps you. It just comes in and slaps you silly because it is so devastating in combat as well as shooting. And what's good about this list is if the Twin Volkites, if they do get nerfed with a points hike, which is very likely, they're probably going to go up to like 20 maybe, then this list is like kind of ready for it with the Chain Fists. And I think you'll see a lot of other people when the Volkites do get nerfed. You'll see a lot of other people start running Chain Fist. I already want some Chain Fist because I really like this list. Sadly, it's only against vehicles. It becomes flat 6 damage, but 2d3 damage is very good. That was Josh Roberts' list. I think it's super cool. I really like it, and Iron Hands are doing the rounds a little bit more. Again, when lists like this are already doing pretty well, and then they've lost their enemies, essentially. Their sworn enemies. Iron Hands struggled into Admech, kind of struggled into Orks a little bit, kind of struggled into Drakari. Now, Drakari are still super dominant with their Talos, with their thick city build. They are still really good, but I think Iron Hands can take it. When it's this devastating, there's only a few armies that can actually tank it and take it on the chin and then keep playing. There isn't many that can keep doing it, you know? Most armies will just fall over to it. And that's kind of like what the playstyle is. It's just kill everything, kill as much as you can, and then play the mission. But you'll be able to see it live in action this Friday. Mikey versus Winters SEO. Iron Hands versus Dark Angels on the channel, 7 PM GMT. Make sure you don't miss it. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Or let me know in the chat if you're watching live. What do you think? Do you like the look of the Iron Hands? Are they too oppressive? What would you change? I think that they really rely on the bodyguard rule, which again I've kind of said that shouldn't really be a thing for character dreadnoughts. Other than that, I don't know what they really change. Like maybe Iron Hands will get a new supplement which will remove the dreadnought stratagem to make a character, which in my opinion is super fluffy, it's super cool, but it is abusable, which is kind of the problem with that stratagem. Yeah, not sure. Let me know what you think in chat. Really appreciate it.